Welcome to Kiran Study Hub. Please subscribe to my channel in the YouTube. Hello students. In this video, let us study about the chapter Nationalism in Europe and let us study about the country France from the year 1789 to 1848. This slide shows you the successive events happened in France from 1789 to 1815. Before 1789, the France was ruled by a monarch Louis XVI belonging to Bourbon dynasty. But because of the French Revolution, there was transfer of power from monarch to French citizens, and a revolutionary government was established in the year 1789 and it ruled till 1792. Later, Robespierre of Jacobin Club ruled France from 1793 to 1794. Later, the five directors took over the control of France. And the directory rule was from 1795 to 1799. Later, in the year 1799, Napoleon came to power and Napoleon implemented the Napoleon Civil Code or the Civil Code of 1804 in the France as well as the regions of the Europe which was under French control. Later, in the year 1815, the Napoleon was defeated in the Battle of Waterloo, and finally in the year 1815, the Treaty of Vienna was signed. As per Treaty of Vienna, conservative rule was established in France, which means Bourbon dynasty was brought back to power, was restored to power in France, and the Bourbon dynasty ruled from 1815 to 1830. But again in 1830 there was one more revolution happened in France. Because of this revolution, constitutional monarchy with Louis Philippe as monarch was established in France. But in the year 1848 there was widespread unemployment, poverty, food shortages happened in France, and finally Louis Philippe was forced to flee. Finally, France became a nation with National Assembly and Republic, which means that there was end of monarchy and France will be ruled by a leader chosen by the people. And finally, the National Assembly granted suffrage to all adult males above 21. The first clear expression of nationalism or the concept of nationalism emerged with the French Revolution in the year 1789. Up to 1789, France was ruled by a monarch or a king, and the king name was Louis XVI and he belonged to Bourbon dynasty. But finally, because of French Revolution, there was transfer of sovereignty or power from monarchy to the French citizens. And the French Revolution proclaimed that it was the people who would henceforth the constitute nation and shape its destiny as well as form the government and rule the country. When the revolutionary government was established in 1789, some political rights were given to people, and such political rights are voting rights and to get elected. Such privileges or such political rights were only granted exclusively or given to property owning men, whereas the poor men and all the women were excluded from the political rights such as voting rights and contesting elections. When the revolutionary government came to power, the French revolutionaries introduced various measures to create a sense of collective identity among the French people. The ideas such as la patrie, the fatherland, and les citoyens, the citizen, emphasize the notion of a united community and all citizens will enjoy equal rights under the constitution. And a new French flag, the tricolor, was chosen to replace the formal royal standard, and the Estate General was elected by the body of active citizens and renamed it as National Assembly, which means today's Parliament. New hymns were composed, oaths were taken, and martyrs were commemorated, all in the name of a nation. And a centralized administrative system was put in place, and the administration will make uniform laws for all citizens within its territory or within the country. Internal custom duties and dues were abolished, and uniform system of weights and measures were adapted. Regional dialects were discouraged, and French as it was spoken and written in Paris became the common language of the nation. And next, after revolutionary government, comes the Jacobean Club or the Reign of Terror. During this period, all the adult males enjoy suffrage, means all the males got voting rights. The French revolutionaries further declared that it was a mission and the destiny of the French nation to liberate the people of Europe from despotism or monarchy. In other words, to help other people of Europe to become nations or to form nations. The news of French Revolution, which happened in France, reached different cities of the Europe, where the French Revolution brought down the monarchy and there was the establishment of constitutional monarchy in the France. That news reached to different cities of the Europe. Slowly the students and the other members of educated middle class of those countries began setting up Jacobin clubs. Their activities and campaigns prepared the way for the French armies to enter those European countries such as Holland, Belgium, Switzerland, Italy in the year 1790s. And later the French armies began to carry the idea of nationalism in other parts of the Europe. Later in the year 1799, when Napoleon came to power, he brought many administrative and economic reforms in the France. Later, Napoleon and the French army conquered most parts of the Europe. Later, the same administrative and economic reforms was also introduced and implemented in the other parts of the Europe. But even though Napoleon no doubt has destroyed the democracy in France, but in the administrative field and in the economic field, he had incorporated revolutionary principles or brought reforms in order to make the whole system more rational and efficient. Napoleon, after coming to power, implemented a civil code of 1804 or Napoleon Code in France as well as other regions of the Europe which was under French control. And the civil code did away or abolished all the privileges based on birth. It established equality before law and secured the right to property. And in many regions such as Dutch, Switzerland, Italy and Germany, Napoleon simplified administrative divisions. He abolished feudal system. He freed peasants from serfdom and manorial dues. In the town too, guild restrictions were removed. Transport and communication systems were improved. Peasants, artisans, workers and new businessmen enjoyed a newfound freedom. And many businessmen and small-scale producers of goods, in particular, understood that the uniform laws, standard weights and measures and common national currency will 100% facilitate the movement and exchange of goods as well as capital from one region to another. Initially, when the Napoleon and French armies conquered major parts of the Europe, in many places such as Holland and Switzerland as well as in many cities such as Brussels, Milan, Warsaw, the French armies were welcomed as harbingers of liberty or supporters of liberty. However, in the political sphere, the Napoleon Code went back to limited suffrage and no political rights were given to women, which means Napoleon Code did not extend the political rights to all citizens. Hence, the initial enthusiasm soon turned to hostility as it became clear that new administrative arrangements and economic reforms did not go hand in hand with the political freedom, which means the Napoleon brought administrative arrangements and economic reforms, but he did not extend the political freedom such as voting rights, contesting elections to all citizens, and also increased taxation, censorship, forced recruitment into the French armies to conquer rest of the Europe all seem to outweigh the advantages of the administrative changes, which means that even though Napoleon brought administrative and economic reforms, but he did not extend or grant the political freedom to all citizens. Hence, some of the European powers such as Britain, France, Prussia and Austro-Hungary Empire finally defeated the Napoleon in the Battle of Waterloo in the year 1815 and finally established the conservative rule or the monarchy rule back in the France and in the other regions of the Europe. After the defeat of Napoleon, a congress or a meeting was hosted by Austrian Chancellor Duke Metternich in Vienna, and finally Treaty of Vienna was signed in the year 1815. And the main intention of the treaty was to restore the monarchies or the king's rule that had been overthrown by Napoleon and create a new conservative order in the Europe. Finally, the Bourbon dynasty, which was ruling before French Revolution, was restored to power or brought back to power in France. And France lost all the territories it had conquered during Napoleon. And a series of states were established on the boundaries of the France to prevent French expansion in the future. And the conservative regimes which was established in 1815 were more autocratic. Means they did not tolerate criticism and dissent and sought to curb activities that questioned the legitimacy of the autocratic governments. Most of the monarchs in the Europe, including the Bourbon dynasty of France, imposed censorship laws to control what was said in newspapers, books, plays and songs, and also wanted to suppress the ideas of liberty and freedom which is associated with the French Revolution. But the memory of the French Revolution continued to inspire liberals, and these revolutions were further led by liberal nationalists belonging to the educated middle class elite such as professors, school teachers, clerks and members of commercial middle class. Finally, the liberal nationalists led one more revolution in the France in the year 1830, and finally the Bourbon dynasty, which was restored to power as per Treaty of Vienna in the year 1815, was now overthrown or brought down by liberal revolutionaries and also installed a constitutional monarchy with Louis Philippe as the monarch. Because of the developments in France, the Duke Metternich, who was Austrian Chancellor, remarked, "When France sneezes, the rest of the Europe catches cold," which means when there is development or changes in the France, this development in the France will influence the other regions of the Europe. The first half of the 19th century saw a great economic hardship in Europe as well as France. The year 1848 was one such year where there was high food shortages in France. The widespread unemployment brought the population of the Paris out on the roads, and even the barricades were erected to control the situation, but Louis Philippe couldn't control the situation and he was forced to flee. Finally, the National Assembly of the France proclaimed the country as republic, which means in the future the country will not be ruled by the monarch or a king. The country will be ruled by a leader chosen by the people. And the National Assembly granted suffrage or voting rights to all adult males above 21 and guaranteed the right to work. And even national workshops were established to provide employment. Thank you.